Shocking journey of Priscilla and Aquila, discover their unbelievable transformation in faith. Few knew what truly happened at night in the bustling city of Corinth, where shadows danced under the flickering oil lamps. It was as if the air itself trembled with secrets. Priscilla, a woman of extraordinary will, and Aquila, her steadfast husband, were caught in a whirlwind of faith that would change everything. Behind the closed doors of their humble abode, miracles felt close enough to touch, yet so far away. The tension was palpable. Moments before, whispers of the followers of the way filled the air, and discussions of the unexpected power of a man named Paul sent chills down their spines. Could anyone truly rise from the dead? Priscilla questioned, her heart racing. Aquila's eyes narrowed. He felt the weight of doubt sitting heavily on his chest. This journey was uncertain, but the chance of divine revelation loomed like a storm cloud ready to burst. There was a history here, intertwined with their own lives. The Roman Empire loomed large around them, enforcing laws that stifled belief yet opened the doors to rebellion in the name of Jesus. This was no ordinary time, these were struggles of faith while the world outside boiled over with chaos and war. They were immersed in a city full of temptations that sparkled like the finest jewels but felt more toxic than any poison. Their home reflected this duality. The walls, adorned with memories of both joyous gatherings and quiet prayers, felt alive. It was where they had clung to each other during darker days. Now, standing at the precipice, a choice awaited them. Would they embrace the radical teachings, or shy away into the noise of conformity? Suddenly, an inexplicable stillness fell over the room, as if the very walls were listening. They glanced at each other, their hands trembling together. What if this is the moment? Priscilla whispered. Aquila swallowed hard, his throat tight with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. He could almost hear the heartbeat of the city outside, a reminder that each decision held the weight of their future and the faith of many. Silence hung between them, stretching into eternity. They were faced with questions that chilled the bones. Were they prepared to risk everything? Would they follow Paul down a path filled with both promise and peril? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As dawn broke over Corinth, the faint light filtered through the shutters, casting shadows that danced like spirits across the floor. Priscilla and Aquila sat at their table, the remnants of their meager meal scattered about, yet their hearts were full of an unsettling anticipation. The silence from the night before still echoed in their ears, a distinct reminder of the choice that loomed so largely over them. Today was different, a specter of uncertainty hung in the air. They recalled stories of Paul, the man who spoke with authority yet shook with passion, igniting hearts with tales of hope beyond the grave. What did this mean for them? Could the words they had heard weave their lives into a new tapestry, one of faith among the faithful, or would it condemn them to be pariahs among their own? Priscilla, Aquila began, his voice steadied by the rising sun. The more I think on what we've heard, the more it feels as if something within us is awakening. Do you too feel this stirring? The question hung in the air, resonating between them like a distant chime. Priscilla looked down, thoughts swirling in a tempest. It is beyond stirring, Aquila, it feels as if chains are clattering to the ground. We've lived in the shadows of our past, clinging to the safety of our modest lives, but is it truly living if we remain silent in this storm of disbelief? The tension threaded through their conversation like a needle through fabric, each word stitching a new reality into existence. The world outside was alive with the noise of merchants and citizens, an immense tide of life and chaos that threatened to drown out their quiet resolve. Yet, there in that tiny room, filled with the weight of history and hope, they felt a stirring, a miraculous possibility that flickered like a flame, undeterred by the winds of doubt. Do you think, Priscilla ventured, that perhaps our hesitance is a test of our faith? What if standing by and watching is an act of treachery to the one who brings life from death? Aquila turned towards her, the earnestness in her voice igniting a flame within him. Then we must risk exposing our hearts to the light even if it burns. To remain in darkness is to deny ourselves the chance for true communion. With renewed vigor, their thoughts converged upon the thought of Paul. Would he be the key to unlock their indifference? What secrets of faith might he reveal? And if they chose to join him and his followers, what awaited them on this path? Suffering, joy, darkness, and revelation, moments stretched as they considered the possibilities. With trembling hands, Priscilla reached for Aquila's. Together, then. Into whatever tomorrow dawns. Aquila nodded slowly, a deep breath escaping him. In him, we shall find strength. But will it be enough? As they clasped hands, an echo of the past whispered through their minds stories of prophets and messengers who ventured forth, chased by adversity yet guided by faith. The weight of the moment pressed upon them. What greater calling existed than to show unwavering faith in a world teetering on the edge? With the day ahead promising both uncertainty and revelation, they stood on the threshold of decision. Yet, as they prepared to leave the confines of their home, a thought lingered: could faith truly conquer the very fears that haunted them? Would their commitment to joining Paul become a beacon of transformation or a quagmire of trials? As they stepped into the bustling streets of Corinth, the cacophony of voices surged around them, but their hearts, entwined in quiet courage, remained resolute. Yet, even as their feet moved forward, the question hung in the air like a fragile thread: what would they face in defiance of the unknown? As the sun climbed higher in the sky, its rays illuminating the bustling streets of Corinth, Priscilla and Aquila found themselves drawn into a rhythm of life, both familiar and unsettling. The markets throbbed with the sounds of bartering voices, and the scent of fresh bread mingled with the salt of the sea. Yet, as they walked together, their purpose was far removed from the daily concerns of most of those around them. "I've heard tell that Paul speaks not only to the minds of men but to their very souls," Priscilla murmured, her eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of the man whom they had only heard about in hushed tones. "His voice has stirred many from their complacency. Should we not prepare ourselves to meet him?" Aquila nodded solemnly. Preparing the heart can often be as daunting as facing the man himself. Do we really know what we seek from him? Or are we merely seeking to fill the void left by years of uncertainty? The question lingered between them as they walked. What did they hope to find? A living faith? A community? Or perhaps a way to reconcile their pasts with the promise of something greater? They had felt the weight of their history, the world that branded them as outsiders, marked by their trade and their displacement. But now, the stirring of hope swelled in their chests like the tide that as they turned a corner, they caught sight of a gathering near the agora, a group of people encircled around a figure standing on a low platform. It must be him. Priscilla's heart raced as they strained to hear his words. They approached cautiously, weaving through the throng, each step filled with both trepidation and eagerness. Paul's voice rose above the clamor. "Brothers and sisters, I implore you to examine your faith. In a world burdened by the weight of sin and despair, there lies a hope that transcends our tribulations, a grace which binds our wounds." His eyes sparkled with fervor, an intensity that radiated outward, making the crowd sway like wheat in the wind. As they edged closer, Aquila grasped Priscilla's arm. "Look at the faces. They are captivated, transformed even. There is a lightness, a liberation in that fervor. It is unlike any gathering I've witnessed." Priscilla felt her pulse quicken. Was that liberation not the same she had yearned for in her own heart? The chains she had long held might indeed be broken if only they dared to step forward. The crowd shifted, the people drawn into the earnestness of Paul's words, as he spoke of unity, love, and a promise of renewal. "It is not for the righteous that I have come, but for the lost and weary." His declaration echoed through the air, leaving a tangible weight in its wake. With a surge of resolve, Priscilla turned to Aquila. "This is our moment, this is the call we cannot ignore. But what if we are misunderstood? What if we expose ourselves to the very scorn we have tried to escape?" Aquila's brow creased with concern. Fear can be as binding as the chains we've carried. Would it not be worse to let it dictate our choices? Priscilla replied, her voice firm with conviction. We must choose to believe, to act upon what we feel stirring in our hearts. In that moment of quiet determination, their hearts beat in unison, pulsing with the rhythm of a shared fate. They could not allow fear to extinguish the flame of hope that flickered before them. As the gathering continued, Paul extended an invitation. Come forth to experience the grace that is offered freely. Let us gather and share in this new covenant, for it is not the past that defines you, but the future that awaits when you place your trust in Him. Priscilla and Aquila stood on the precipice of decision. The crowd surged forward, a movement of hands and hearts embracing the call to change. They felt the sacred pull, the invitation to a radical transformation that beckoned them to shed their pasts, yet with every heartbeat, a question lingered in their minds: would their steps into this calling lead to a new life, or would they find themselves ensnared in doubts that might suffocate their budding faith? Would they be embraced as new believers or cast aside for their uncertainties? The crowd swelled, a living wave of flesh and spirit, drawn to the magnetic force of Paul's proclamations. Faces painted with hope and skepticism alike surged forward, many reaching out, yearning for the change that had been promised. Priscilla felt her heart race, both exhilarated and terrified by the collective energy that pulsated around her. Look at them, Aquila. She breathed, eyes wide with wonder. These people stand ready to embrace something greater than themselves. Will we allow our fears to keep us from this transformation? Aquila's hesitation warred with the fervent pulse of the gathering. I long for that renewal, he admitted softly, but who are we to step into such a sacred space? What if our past, marked with uncertainty and doubt, taints the grace that Paul speaks of? The challenge of vulnerability loomed before them. Priscilla took a step closer to the edge of the swirling mass, her hands trembling at her sides. We were made for grace, Aquila. We must trust that it is greater than our past transgressions. Perhaps the weight we carry can be lifted, not by our own merit but by the mercy of the one who welcomes the weary. As if to affirm her words, Paul's voice rang out once more, echoing in the recesses of Priscilla's heart. Do not fear, for love casts out all fear. The kingdom is here among those who hunger for truth. The fervor in his voice turned the crowd into an ocean of longing, washing toward the promise of acceptance and belonging. Tears brimmed in Priscilla's eyes. Aquila, what if we were to step forward? What if we allow ourselves to believe we belong to this community? Before he could respond, a hand reached out, grasping Aquila's arm, a farmer from the fields nearby, who had been listening intently. You seek answers, don't you? Come. Through him, there is a peace you cannot yet fathom. With that invitation, Aquila turned to meet Priscilla's gaze. They shared an understanding that transcended words, the silent communion of two souls on the cusp of change. The question no longer was if they would step forward, but rather, in what manner they would embrace this unfolding mystery. Together, they blended into the throng, shoulders brushing against others who shared the same yearning. As they approached the platform, their mismatched past felt lighter with each step. The anxiety that had shackled them for so long began to unravel, replaced by a tentative hope. As they reached the front, Paul looked directly at them, his eyes piercing through the crowd. You there? Do you seek healing? Do you desire renewal? Speak out, for every voice matters in this shared journey. Priscilla felt that heat of the moment, a wave of both trepidation and exhilaration overtaking her. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. At least I have long borne the weight of uncertainty, longing for something more. Can we find that grace you speak of? Paul stepped down from the platform, his spirit fierce yet tender. Grace is not a destination but a journey. It is offered to you not for who you were, but for who you can become. Embrace your past to understand your future. Aquila, emboldened by Paul's words, reached out and squeezed Priscilla's hand, grounding her. Then lead us. We will walk this journey together. Paul nodded, unyielding in his conviction. Then join us. He moved aside to usher them both into that sacred circle. The surrounding faces bore witness, a tapestry of shared humanity woven together in faith, each soul a testament to the power of transformation. Filling the space while holding their breaths, Priscilla and Aquila became aware that their journey was not simply about one instance of faith but rather a continual unfolding of understanding, healing, and community. In that moment of acceptance, Priscilla felt something shift inside her, a stirring of strength blossoming like an early spring flower, pushing through the frost. But beneath the surface of that sweet triumph lingering was the tremor of doubt, still echoing in the corners of her mind about their collective path. As the gathering erupted into heartfelt prayers, hands raised and voices joined in ecstatic celebration, a lingering thought washed over them: what would they be willing to surrender in pursuit of this transformation? Was their willingness to embrace grace a solitary action, or would it kindle a fire that could set the world ablaze with hope? The fervor of the gathering pulsed like a living heartbeat, resonating through the very air that enveloped Priscilla and Aquila. Faces brightened with newfound hope leaned in closer, their collective breath filling the space with anticipation. Paul, standing before them, became not just a leader but a conduit of the deeper mysteries that lay within the folds of faith. As they integrated into the circle created by those eager to embrace renewal, Priscilla noticed the rich mosaic of lives interwoven around them, each person bearing stories etched into their hearts, all converging upon this shared moment. It was as if time stood still, allowing them to feel the vibrant tapestry of community being woven, where each thread represented struggles, victories, and the promise of healing. "Look at what you have entered into," Paul's voice resonated, his gaze sweeping across the crowd with fervor. "Each of you is called to not only receive but also to give. In this kingdom, love is the binding force that transforms lost and weary souls. Will you open your hearts and share your burdens?" The farmer who had grasped Aquila's arm stood beside them, his grizzled face radiant with joy. "I came here burdened by the weight of my own failures. Yet here, I have learned that our failures are not the end but stepping stones toward redemption." His words struck a chord deep within Priscilla. She felt the remnants of her own fears, self-doubts and past failures creeping back into her mind, battling against the tide of hope that surged around her. Could her past truly serve as a stepping stone? Or would it forever chain her spirit to old patterns of disappointment? As if reading her thoughts, Paul continued, "When you share your burdens, you weave them into the fabric of community. Healing springs forth not merely in solitude but in togetherness. Who among you will share, lifting your shadow into the light?" Aquila nudged her gently, urging her to speak, yet the hesitation returned, a familiar cloak wrapped tightly around her heart. But as she stood there, she observed others stepping forth, their voices rising into the air. A woman with tear-filled eyes described the loss of a child, only to find solace in this collective embrace. A young man recounted his struggle with addiction and the unseen chains that once bound him, but now, through this gathering, he found hope. Priscilla felt the shame begin to melt away, replaced with a profound sense of belonging. As the stories unfolded, a new question weighed heavier in her heart: was the journey toward grace not a solitary endeavor, but one that invited the stories of others, weaving them together into a powerful tapestry of shared experience? When finally she found her voice, it emerged as a whisper, yet carried the weight of sincerity. "I, too, have wandered in darkness. My fear of unworthiness has held me back. But in this gathering, I feel the stirrings of something more. Can our fragmented stories create a new narrative of hope?" Paul's eyes sparkled with understanding, a warm smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "Yes, dear sister. Your stories are not fragments, they are pieces of the divine puzzle that needs each of us to complete it. Share your light, and as you do, you will find healing not only within but among each other." With those words, a wave of courage washed over Priscilla. She realized that their shared vulnerability could inspire others to shed their own burdens. There was strength to be found within this community, a collective energy that could uplift and transform like the rising tide cleansing the shores. Yet, even in that moment of awakening, uncertainty lingered. The lingering shadow of doubt whispered, how could they maintain this light amidst a world that often felt shrouded in darkness? As the gathering continued to weave their stories into an anthem of solidarity, Priscilla couldn't shake the weight of that question. What would it take for their flickering flame of hope to ignite a wildfire of change in a world desperate for healing? As the gathering deepened, the atmosphere transformed from mere anticipation to an electric communion of souls. Paul, filled with a spirit that seemed to ignite each word, insisted upon the importance of connection, urging the crowd to consider the implications of their shared journey. Trust, he proclaimed, is the foundation upon which we build our lives in faith. When one suffers, we all feel the pain; when one rejoices, the joy reverberates in every heart. Can you imagine the power of a community bound by love and truth? Priscilla focused on the transformative message, marveling at how easily fear could transform into faith when nurtured by the support of others. Yet still, a flicker of anxiety danced in her chest, reminding her of the uncertainties that awaited them beyond this sacred gathering. The world outside had not changed. The chaos of doubts and struggles loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. As if sensing her apprehension, Aquila whispered, "We must take what we find here into the world, Priscilla. It cannot end just within these walls. Our faith is not meant to be a comfort for the chosen few, it beckons us to reach beyond ourselves." Paul then recounted stories of the early disciples, how they had ventured into the unknown, sharing the good news far and wide. Like seeds scattered upon the ground, some will fall upon fertile soil, taking root and flourishing, while others may find arid lands. Yet still, we sow, faith is found in the journey towards the unknown. The crowd murmured, and Priscilla felt a kindling of hope amidst the apprehension. But doubt returned, sinking its teeth into her resolve. What if their seeds fell upon rocky paths or paths laden with thorns? Weren't they risking everything by venturing into this mysterious world, ripe with rejection and misunderstanding? Suddenly, a voice broke her reverie. A man, bent but unyielding, stepped forward. His hands, calloused from labor, trembled as he spoke. "I am a carpenter, and I have spent my life constructing homes for others. Yet in this gathering, I realize I too am a house needing repair. We must not fear the work ahead of us, for it is in the forging of connection and openness that we build the strongest walls against the tempests of doubt." His reflection hung in the air like an unsolved equation, evoking a desire within Priscilla to actively participate in this new chapter of her life. If they could be like builders, each brick a story shared, each nail a moment of vulnerability, what magnificent structures could emerge. Encouraged by the collective spirit, she breathed deeply, adopting the courage she had seen in the faces surrounding her. "Then let us be builders," she declared, her voice rising above the murmurs. "If darkness has been my teacher, let light be the beacon that guides us forward. Together we can shape our fears into our foundations." Cheers erupted in the crowd, yet within her, the whispering shadows of doubt still lingered. Could their humble gathering create ripples that reached beyond their cloistered community? Would their commitment to one another withstand the external challenges waiting to test their newfound resolve? As the gathering began to disperse, Paul's voice rang out once more, echoing the need for ongoing commitment to each other. "Do not forget the bonds forged in this sacred space. The world will try to unravel them, but remember that our strength is found in love and community." Priscilla's heart beat with a newfound rhythm, yet the questions continued to swirl in her mind, now more poignant than ever. How would they translate this moment into enduring action? And amidst the global tumult, would their voices rise against the tide, or would silence overshadow the call for compassion and connection? As the gathering disbanded, a gentle breeze swept through the streets, a silent witness to the hearts that had just converged in a tapestry of faith and courage. Priscilla exchanged glances with Aquila, the flicker of determination in his eyes reflecting her own apprehensions and hopes. Together, they stepped into the fading light, hands intertwined, breathing in the air heavy with promise and uncertainty. "Where do we begin?" Priscilla asked, her voice taking on a contemplative lilt. Her thoughts raced, trying to map the route from their newfound communal strength back to the world that had so often felt hostile and unwelcoming. Aquila paused, the street lamps casting soft shadows upon the cobblestones. "We start with one step," he replied, a smile breaking through the weight of their shared worries. "We'll invite those around us, friends, neighbors, into our lives. The most impactful journeys begin with simple gestures, a shared meal, a listening ear, a story told. His words breathed life into her thoughts, yet doubt crept in again. But what if they do not receive us? What if they push back against our faith, she mused, as anxieties threatened to tether her to the safety of the gathering. Remember the carpenter's words, Aquila replied. He spoke of repair. To build anew, we must confront the decay surrounding us. Just as every house bears its scars, so too will our faith endure challenges. It is through connecting, through sharing our vulnerabilities, that we will find strength together. Their path led them to the market square, where familiar faces bustled about, haggling and laughing in the warmth of fading sunlight. Priscilla's heart raced as she contemplated reaching out. Would they see the faith in her eyes, or would they simply see the uncertainty? As they made their way to an elderly woman sitting on a bench, her once bright scarf now dulled by time, they exchanged glances filled with unspoken resolve. May we sit with you? Aquila asked gently, offering a smile that illuminated his conviction. The woman looked up, her expression transforming from surprise to acceptance. Why, yes. It's rare to share a moment with kind souls nowadays, she replied, her voice soft yet laced with both gratitude and a hint of loneliness. In that simple exchange, Priscilla felt something shift within her. The weight of the world seemed less heavy as they engaged in conversation, sharing laughter and stories that bridged the gaps formed by years of isolation. She began to understand that each interaction was a seed, capable of sprouting faith in unexpected places. Time slipped away, and in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of shared humanity, the mysteries of their journey threaded through her mind like golden strands. What was faith, if not a series of connections forged amid vulnerability? What if her fears could be transformed into bridges rather than barriers? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the square, Aquila turned to Priscilla, his expression filled with conviction. Together, we are cultivating something precious. Can you see it? His eyes sparkled with hope that reminded her of Paul's words earlier that day. She nodded, feeling the transformation unfurl within her spirit. Yet still, a question lingered, gnawing at her resolve. How were they to maintain this spark of connection amidst the looming tides of indifference and fear in a world that often seemed too fragmented to care? With the elderly woman's laughter still dancing in her ears, Priscilla found herself confronted not just by uncertainty, but with the profound truth of vulnerability's power. Could a small act of kindness ripple outwards, changing the course of lives and binding hearts in ways they could not yet fathom? And as they prepared to leave, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much greater journey. As the night wrapped the market square in its soft embrace, the stars began their quiet vigil, twinkling with the promise of revelations yet to unfold. Priscilla and Aquila departed from the elderly woman, their spirits lifted by shared stories that shimmered like the first light of dawn. But the depths of their mission unfolded before them like the boundless night sky, filled with countless mysteries to explore. They found themselves wandering through the winding streets, where the laughter of children danced through the air, intermingled with the more somber tones of whispered secrets. It was as though the city itself breathed a collective sigh, exhaling its worries, hopes, and dreams into the chill of the evening. Priscilla looked around, her heart both buoyed and troubled. Every face told a story, and she felt an irresistible pull toward each one. What would it mean to connect with them all? Priscilla pondered aloud, her mind racing with the possibilities and challenges that lay in reaching out further into the community. Does our faith not demand us to encounter the difficult, the resistant, and even the indifferent? Aquila looked thoughtful, his gaze fixed on a group of young men nearby, engaged in animated debate. Indeed, it does, he mused. Yet, we must not forget that humility is at the core of our journey. We approach not as conquerors, but as seekers. Our vulnerability invites others to be vulnerable with us. In their openness, we may find their hearts can be softened to our message. Priscilla considered his words deeply. She had witnessed the transformative power of vulnerability in their earlier encounter, yet here in the shadows of doubt, the stakes felt so much higher. Would those who have been resistant to faith see the beauty of their message? Or would they shut the door to connections before they even began? As if in answer to her unspoken thoughts, a young woman approached them, drawn in by their animated conversation. Her presence exuded an air of curiosity, mixed with skepticism. "You look as if you're on a significant quest," she remarked, tilting her head slightly. "What brings you here, wandering after dusk?" Priscilla felt a flutter of nervous anticipation. "We are searching for connections," she replied. "We believe that through understanding one another's stories, we can inspire faith even in a world that often seems unkind." The young woman studied them intently, as if weighing their words against her life experiences. "And what relevance does your faith have for someone like me?" she asked, her gaze probing yet sincere. For a moment, silence enveloped them like a cloak, heavy with the weight of this encounter. Priscilla's heart raced as she prepared to respond. She thought of the gathering of believers, the shared meals, and the laughter that had slowly knit together their diverse threads into a tapestry of faith. Each shared moment, each act of kindness, spoke of the power of connection. Aquila interjected gently, "Faith is not only about belief, it's about connection, vulnerability, and support. When we reach out to one another, we unveil the fabric of our humanity. The stories and scars each of us carry hold immeasurable potential for healing. Would you share one of yours with us?" The young woman hesitated, eyes glistening with emotion. Something about their sincerity resonated within her, and, as she began to recount her past, the struggles, the losses, the fleeting moments of joy, Priscilla and Aquila listened closely. In that instant, something profound shifted in Priscilla's understanding of their journey. Faith was not a solitary venture, it was a collective experience, a growing web of stories leading toward a greater truth. Yet behind the young woman's stories lay a well of pain and skepticism, echoing the doubts that had plagued Priscilla earlier. They sat not only with this woman's challenges, but with their own uncertainties. How many hearts remained untouched, waiting in the shadows of fear and doubt? As they parted ways, Priscilla felt an ache growing within her again. The journey they had embarked upon seemed to stretch infinitely ahead, each encounter a step into the unknown. How could they navigate through these emotional landscapes to find the seeds of faith hidden within the burdens of others? In the glow of the lanterns lining the streets, Priscilla held tightly to Aquila's hand, her mind swirling with thoughts of connection, vulnerability, and the unseen paths that intertwined their lives. Could they nurture a community where every fragmented heart might feel cared for and embraced in faith? And as they walked, the question lingered, heavy and unyielding: was it possible to find hope in the very places where despair had taken root? The streets continued to wend beneath their feet, winding like the thoughts swirling in Priscilla's mind. There, under the soft glow of lantern light, they encountered a crossroads, each pathway offering new possibilities yet obscured by the dense fog of uncertainty. "Look," Aquila said, gently guiding Priscilla's gaze toward the marketplace, now settling into the soft sounds of night. "Those gathered there seem lost in their own journeys. Our task respects their stories while gently weaving our faith into the tapestry of their lives." Priscilla studied the faces around the market, illuminated momentarily by flickering flames from nearby vendors. Each expression revealed a myriad of inner conflicts: hope, despair, joy, sorrow. It dawned upon her that their mission was not solely to teach but to learn, to listen. What if we offered not just our message, but ourselves? She mused, reflecting on their previous encounter. Aquila nodded, understanding her evolving perspective. "We are not here simply as ambassadors of faith, we are here as participants in the grand narrative. Every story we hear could reveal a piece of the divine puzzle." As they wandered deeper into the market's heart, the laughter of children was gradually replaced by the somber tones of conversations growing earnest. Among them was an older man, his hands roughened by time and toil, his shoulders hunched beneath the weight of burdens known only to him. He stood telling tales of loss to a small cohort gathered close, their eyes reflecting a mix of sympathy and curiosity. "What is it he speaks of?" Priscilla whispered, captivated. "Perhaps he knows a grief we have not yet tasted," Aquila suggested. "Let us hear him." Drawing closer, they silently merged into the small crowd. The man recounted tales of a son lost at sea, of evenings spent under the stars waiting for a figure to reappear on the horizon that never came. Each word transported Priscilla deeper into a realm of shared human experience of grief, longing, and the haunting echoes of what might have been. As the man finished, a moment of silence enveloped them, the kind that hangs heavy with unspoken emotions. Then, one by one, the listeners began to share their own wounds and sorrows. Priscilla felt a stirring within her. How could she speak of hope amidst such anguish? Shouldn't her words be crafted with care? Is there a way we can carry each other's burdens? She finally found herself uttering, the question rising like a soft prayer into the cool night air. What if, in our shared vulnerability, we could find a way towards healing? The crowd paused, absorbing the weight of her words. It was then that a woman standing at the back took a hesitant step forward. What if healing cannot occur without first addressing the hurt? She asked, her voice strong yet tender. Is faith a balm or merely an illusion? Priscilla's heart raced. This was the crux of their journey, a genuine inquiry toward a deeper understanding. She cast a glance at Aquila, who encouraged her with a steadfast gaze. Yes, healing requires honesty, he replied thoughtfully. Yet faith calls out like a lighthouse in the storm. It invites us to navigate through the turbulent waters and discover the meaning hidden among our pain. The connection forged in sharing often becomes the vessel through which faith can emerge. As murmurs of agreement fluttered through the crowd, Priscilla sensed a collective yearning and unearthing of spiritual truths wrapped in life's struggles. Yet, the piercing question deepened, was it indeed possible to nurture seeds of faith amidst so much raw suffering? How could they embrace the fragility of hope without trivializing the ache that accompanied it? The night continued to unfurl, and as faces illuminated by lantern light exchanged stories of loss, doubt, and longing, Priscilla felt that she was standing at a precipice, looking into a vast abyss of yearning and connection. With each heartbeat, she grasped the beautiful complexity of faith intertwined with sorrow, yet the question loomed large and enigmatic: could the yearning for connection lead to true faith, or was that a fragile dream, forever out of reach? As twilight deepened into night, Priscilla and Aquila meandered back through the streets of Corinth, their hearts heavy with the stories shared and the raw emotions that lingered like fragrant incense in the air. The day had carved into their souls a profound awareness: faith was no longer a mere concept, but a living entity, rooted in shared trials and triumphs. Under the starlit sky, they paused before the door of their home, sensing an unspoken urgency to transform the insights they gained. Aquila turned to Priscilla, his voice tinged with determination. We have heard the cries of the weary, the longings of the lost. We must act, must carry this hope forward into the lives we touch daily. It cannot end here. Priscilla nodded, her mind racing with a vitality that coursed through her veins, an infusion of purpose that overcame the shadows of doubt lingering from the day's encounters. Then let us start tomorrow, she replied resolutely, envisioning a welcoming space where stories could be shared and burdens begin to be lifted. The morning light crept into their humble abode, painting soft rays across the floor, and with it came renewed resolve. As they prepared for the day, Priscilla felt the stirrings of hope already brewing. What if we host a gathering, Aquila? A place where our neighbors can bring their stories, share their hearts, perhaps some may even find healing in our warmth. Aquila's eyes lit, flaring with excitement at the prospect. Yes. A banquet of sorts: food, stories, and a celebration of what community can truly mean. We can create an open door, allowing others to step into the narrative interwoven in our lives. So they began preparing for a gathering, an invitation sent far and wide among those they knew, and even to those they barely recognized. As the sun painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the homely scent of stew simmering wafted through the air alongside the laughter of children playing in the streets. The ambience felt electric, alive with promise. As dusk fell and the first guests began to trickle into their home, Priscilla's nerves flared. Would the walls of their years of solitude truly welcome this multitude? She watched as familiar faces hesitantly crossed the threshold alongside strangers, all carrying their own stories, some etched with scars of past wounds, others gleaming with the hope of healing. Aquila sensed her apprehension and squeezed her hand gently, a steadying balm. Remember, vulnerability fosters connection. Let us lead by sharing our own stories, being open and inviting others to share theirs. The evening unfolded like a tapestry, filled with laughter, tears, and revelations shared over humble bread and wine. As voices intertwined and stories wove in and out, an undercurrent of healing began to resonate within the room. When Priscilla and Aquila shared their own journey challenged by uncertainty yet buoyed by the stirring of faith, it acted as a catalyst. They spoke of their doubts, their fears, and ultimately, their transformative confrontation with love. One by one, the burden began to share. An elderly widow spoke of her loneliness, her heart heavy with grief, yet she found solace in the laughter of children. A young father lifted the veil of addiction that had shadowed his life, illuminating the hope of newfound strength and purpose. With each shared story, the air became thicker with healing and understanding, the atmosphere nurturing seeds of hope planted deep within each participant. Hours passed like moments, and as the night wore on, Priscilla noticed the flicker of something extraordinary in the faces surrounding them. Transformation. Those once shrouded in silence began to shed their burdens, wrapping them in the warmth of communal love. Acceptance flowed like a river, washing over fears, carving valleys of trust along the way. Amid the emotions pulsating through the room, Priscilla felt a wave of energy rise within her. As she looked around, each face shone with a light that seemed to flicker brighter as they leaned into one another's stories. This was no ordinary gathering, this was the birth of a community, one bound not by mere proximity, but by shared vulnerability, hope, and faith stitched together through the honesty of their confessions. As the night drew to a close, Paul's words echoed in her heart: "Do not fear, for love casts out all fear." It was indeed a testament to the power of love that had transformed the evening into a sacred space, a glimpse of what the kingdom could look like among them. As guests began to trickle out into the cool night air, a warm glow lingered in the room, an aura of joy and belonging shining to life. As the door closed, sealing the night's magic within, Priscilla turned to Aquila, their eyes reflecting a shared revelation. "This is just the beginning," she breathed, heart swelling with hope. "Together, we can be the storytellers, weaving light into even the darkest corners of our community." Aquila grinned, a sparkle in his eye. "May this gathering become a beacon, illuminating paths for those still searching, and may we always seek to listen, to learn, and to share the light we've found." In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and the remnants of heartfelt conversations, Priscilla understood a profound truth: faith was not merely a doctrine, it was a journey of shared lives, intertwined in the heart of humanity. This evening had not only transformed them but created ripples across a city starved for connection. With the candlelight flickering gently around them, hope and transformation blossomed in the cavernous depths of their souls, flourishing into a new dawn of possibilities where every hand held out could be met with assurance. This journey was theirs, but its impact would echo much further, resonating into the lives of those yet untouched by the grace of love and community. And so, Priscilla and Aquila stepped into the new day, ready not just to embrace faith but to live it loudly and unreservedly, embodying the transformative love they had discovered together. They were set to become instruments of change, tender hands that would weave stories of beauty into the very fabric of Corinth and beyond, forging connections that would echo eternally beyond their time. The journey had just begun, but the future glimmered with promise, inviting them to explore every horizon of hope and faith yet to be unveiled.